So have you ever wondered how to get the most accuracy and range out of your hop-up unit without doing something time-consuming like R-hop or ER-hop? Well, you're going to find out today on this episode of Inside the Gearbox. Well, technically outside the gearbox. This video is going to cover how to fine-tune your hop-up unit. We will not be touching the barrel at all in this video. In this video, it will cover how to flat hop a bucking, how to make your own nub out of a racer to work best with the flat hop, and how to modify your hop-up arm to work best with all that combined. Now, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least difficult and 10 being the most difficult, this video and whole process is going to be about a 2. It really isn't that difficult, yet it can be a little tedious for a beginning tech. However, once you get the hang of it, you can fly by it, just like that. So, if you're very new to teching and you just don't know anything about teching at all, and you're watching this video and you just heard me say flat hop and nub and all these other terms you probably don't understand, or you may not understand at all, well, I can explain that. We're going to. Flat hop is basically a modification that we do where we totally remove the mound on the bucking and the lock line on the bucking. Now, if you watch this video later on and you get later into the video, you're going to see what I'm talking about when we turn the bucking inside out and actually show you what we're going to remove. But the reason why we remove this is because the bucking is very poorly designed, as a matter of fact. The mound on it is very convex, and it's like half a circle. It's a semicircle for the most part. So when you apply, you turn your hop up on, your BB goes down the barrel, and just a small little contact point on this patch, or on the hop up bucking, is contacting the BB, it doesn't get the greatest consistency. As you can see in some of your guns, or in your gun maybe, you're shooting and your BB goes out to 170 feet or something like that if it's a stock gun, and it flies off the right, or it goes down, or it goes off to the left, or it goes up, or it just goes everywhere on full auto. This can be a reason why that goes to show how your mound is kind of poorly designed in the hop-up bucking. They're just kind of a bad design, really. I don't know how else to put it. By removing this mound and applying, or actually using one of our custom-made nubs, we kind of get rid of that concave, sharp-pointed contact on the BB. Instead, we replace it with a rectangular, contact surface where we get as much contact surface or contact point on that BB, so that it kind of gets it around, so that when the BB goes through the hop-up unit and it gets around, and it contacts that hop-up bucking, it contacts it more fully because our contact point is flat as opposed to being this sharp rounded point, or kind of a sharp rounded point really. But what this does is it creates better accuracy, consistency, greater range, and just greater accuracy in general. And other terms like the nub. The nub is what pushes down on the bucking. In a stock gun, it's this little cylindrical piece of silicone tube or whatever that pushes down onto the bucking when you turn your hop up, or we turn it down, it goes up. And hop-up arm is simply the arm that is used to push down and up on the nub, which in turn pushes down or pulls up off the bucking. And the dials can, if you push the dials forward, pushes the hop-up arm down. If you turn them backwards, then it pulls the hop-up arm back, decreasing hop-up as a matter of fact. But in this video, you're going to learn how to flat hop your bucking. You're going to learn how to create your own custom nub, and I'm going to show you how to do it properly. And I'm going to show you how to modify the hop-up arm to work best with all these with this component and everything else going on. But yep, I'll get on to the video, guys. For the sake of simplicity, I've chosen a Lonex M4/M16 hop-up unit to do this video on. We will also be using a Lonex 70D bucking and a ZCI 6.02 barrel. This process will work with just about any hop-up unit out there. I have yet to encounter one where I cannot do this simple modification too. The process is the exact same, just a little bit different design, that's all. Now let's head over to the bench and we'll talk about what you need. Now there are going to be a few things you're going to need in order to fine-tune your hop-up unit. Outside of the hop-up unit, the bucking, and the barrel, of course. You're going to need a screwdriver to take apart your hop-up unit. Pretty basic, really. An X-Acto knife, very cheap. Pink eraser, even cheaper. Dental floss, you should have some laying around, and some very nice super glue. You may have some of this, you may not. It depends on if you're a beginning tech or whatever you are. You may have some and you may not. And of course, a Dremel. Some people use some sandpaper instead of a Dremel. However, I use a Dremel because it's just faster and I'm really lazy. And I have a cutting attachment. Make sure you have a cutting attachment, not a sanding or a grinding attachment, as both of those will not work for flat hop. In addition, you're going to need something very basic like dish liquid soap to clean the bucking when you're done. I didn't really want to put it on here as most people have that in their house standard. So, first things first, you're going to want to disassemble your hop-up unit. Now the parts we're actually going to be using, or the components we're going to be using inside the hop-up, will be the bucking, set that off to the side, the hop-up arm, and that's about it really. So, let's get on to the next part. Now, you're going to need to be able to get your hop-up bucking inside out. That is to where this big mound right here is facing on the outside, and this other hop-up lock line is on the other side. This is honestly the most difficult part of the process. It can be tedious at times, and your first attempt, you're going to drive yourself crazy with it probably. I find it easiest to use a flathead screwdriver to kind of push it in and bend it, and then pull it right back in inside out of itself. That's how I find it easiest. Other people use a pair of tweezers and pliers and all kinds of stuff. This is just what I find easiest, and you're going to have to find whatever is easiest for you. I can't really say much else than that. Now the next thing we're going to be doing is removing the mound and lock line from our hop-up bucking. Now you can either use a Dremel, a file, or even some sandpaper if you want to. However, this just takes way too long to do it with anything but a Dremel in my opinion. Now I'm going to go off video for this, but I will show you the finished product and what it should look like and all that stuff. So, give me 1 second, I'll be right back. Bada bing, bada boom, just like that, I'm back. Now, the bucking, where the mound used to be, it should be completely flat. You should be able to no longer feel that there was a mound there. It can be a little rough, don't worry, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just don't want to dig too much into the bucking. All you're doing is removing the mound. Same thing with the lock line. Make sure it's completely removed and that you can't feel it over it at all. If you can feel the mound over it, you're going to want to go back and remove it. Because if there's a mound there still, and the way we use a flat hop, you might be losing some air seal, and it's just, you're not going to get the best FPS, okay? So you're going to make sure you remove it completely, but you don't want to remove too much to where you don't have much of a bucking there anymore. That can be just as bad. Now, what I recommend you do right at this time is to take this bucking and go wash it with some hot water in with some dish liquid soap. Rub it together like that in between your hands, get all the grease out of it and the silicone out of it, and set it off to the side to dry. And move on to the next process from there, which I will be getting around to right now. Now, while you're waiting for your bucking to dry after you've washed it with some hot water and some soap, you're going to want to move on to this process. It's very similar to the previous process that we did by removing the mound on the bucking, but instead we're going to remove a portion of the hop-up arm. The portion we will be removing will be this little arch right here, or semicircle actually. We want to remove it with a Dremel down to where it's flat with the rest of this piece right here. By doing so, we will make room for our custom-made nub. So let's get right back down to it, and when I'm done, I will show you what it's supposed to look like. Already done. Now, how it's supposed to look is just like this. As you can see, you can pretty much tell there was never a semicircle there at all. It's just completely flat. And now you're going to want to do the most perfect job you can do here, because this is where a lot of your accuracy is going to come from. You can mess up on the nub all you want when you're making it because, well, you got more pink eraser more than likely. However, with this, you've only got one laying around more than likely, unless you're like me and you got 50 of them. However, if you do mess up, I believe you can buy a piece of this or hop-up unit parts from BrillArmory.com for relatively cheap. But just to save some money, you're going to want to do it right the first time. But like I said, this is how it's supposed to look. Let's move on. Alright, so now let's get down to the part of making our nub. So, I got my pink eraser here, my X-Acto knife, and my hop-up arm. These are the pieces and tools you're going to want to have handy while you're cutting your nub. What I like to do to ensure a precise cut without tons of measuring and all kinds of overdoing it stuff, I like to take the hop-up arm and set it down on the pink eraser. Now what I do is I set it down on the edge so that I can cut a perfect sliver right off from behind of it, just like this one. Now this sliver I can cut up and make it into more pieces and more nubs if I want to, because the whole nub isn't going to be this whole piece right here. That would be crazy huge. Instead, what I like to do is I'll set it right here. I'll take the hop unit as well, and I'll see how big the window is down there, how much room I have to work with. Now all hop-up windows, or all bucking and nub windows, are all basically the same size. They don't vary a whole lot. I believe the G36 one is kind of smaller, but for the most part, they're all the same size. So what I like to do is I like to take it and kind of guesstimate how big of a nub I need to cut, and I go from there. Now when I do cut, I'll cut it like this, leaving as much room as possible up and down so I can use a ton or use a little, and I'll get around to explaining that later. However, make your cut and go from there. After you've made the second cut for your custom nub, we're going to make a third cut. Now that you've cut, your cut should look similar to this. It should be about this size if you've been following the directions in this video perfectly. What you're going to do from this point is you're probably going to want to nearly half it, or take at least a third off. That's what I would do. Next, you're going to want to set up this apparatus right here. All this is the bucking, the barrel, and the hop-up unit and the C-clamp, so that I got a really good setup right here. There's no dials in, there's no nothing to that effect. All I have in is the basic stuff. From this point, you're going to want to take a third off from this, put it in here, and then assemble your hop-up arm. Now when your hop-up arm is assembled and everything's put together, you're going to want to test to see, and put this in right here. Basically what you should be looking at when you're completely done with this setup is this right here. All this is going to do for you is tell you how much more you need to take off the bottom of your custom nub here. Now the reason why we do this is because if we stick our nub in and it's all the way putting pressure down on the hop-up bucking to where it's pushed down all the way, what that's doing is that doesn't allow us to set it up or to take it down again, because the custom cut nub is too big. It's already pushing down on it without even us adjusting our hop-up unit. So if we were to turn it all the way up, the nub would be pushing the bucking down so far into the barrel that it would be covering up half the barrel. What we want is to be able to make our custom nub in and put it in to where when our hop-up is off, it's not pushed down at any by the nub. But if we turn it on even the slightest bit, the nub pushes the hop-up bucking down a little bit. In other words, you're going to want to have it like about 0.1 of a millimeter of space between the nub and the bucking on the total off position on the hop-up unit dials. If you've completely understood that, the next couple steps you're going to have to do yourself, as I can't really explain it any further on camera from that point. Just make sure that when your hop-up is all the way off, that your nub is not pushing your bucking down at all. And if you dial it any way forward at all, the nub will push down, so that there's no space, that there's barely any space between the nub and the hop-up bucking. That's really the best I can explain it. When I'm done doing this one, I'll have to show it to you on video. However, I can't really show steps in between. Now that you have fine-tuned your custom nub to fit into your hop-up unit and to adjust properly, we're going to do the second to last step. We're almost done, guys. Alright, so the second to last step would be to take apart your whole apparatus here where you were measuring and cutting and all that stuff. So first we're going to do that. While I'm doing this, you might as well get your dental floss ready. And I'll take out my hop-up bucking and barrel. Now what you do from here is where the dental floss comes in. Dental floss and Teflon can be used interchangeably here. Preferably, I honestly like Teflon better. I just don't really have any on me right now. So I had to go with the next best thing, dental floss. What it is used for in airsoft applications when we're in the hop-up unit is that between the hop-up bucking and the hop-up unit, there can be some loose space there. There can be some space where the air will, instead of going down the barrel, go around the hop-up bucking, and we'll lose some FPS there, and that's just an inefficient system. Say on an M120 without this modification, you may be shooting 380. But with this modification and full fine-tuning of your hop-up unit, you could be shooting 400. I've seen jumps like that before. It is incredible what stuff like this can actually do to increase the efficiency of your gun. What you do is you take your dental floss and take a good amount out. You really don't need a whole lot, but at the same time it's better to have more than less. So you take it and wrap it around the front of your bucking right here. Now you wrap it around 1, 2, 3, 4 times, or as many times as it requires to get the space between your hop-up unit and your hop-up bucking to shim out. Basically what we're doing here is we're shimming the space in between the hop-up bucking and the hop-up unit. Now you can, like I said, do this and wrap it around until as many times as necessary to shim out that unnecessary space and to seal your hop-up unit once and for all. So what some people do instead of this, and in addition to this, is they use Permatex right around here on the barrel, and they push down the bucking, and they wait a full day, and this completely seals the bucking to the barrel. That's what some people do. I do not prefer this method, as if I need to change out the bucking, say it gets torn or it's getting old, then it's near impossible to clean up the crap on the barrel. And that's just something I don't prefer. I like my barrels to stay nice and clean. That's just me though. Before you do this, however, what you want to do is do you remember how we removed the mound and the lock line on the inside of the bucking? Well, you want to make sure that neither of those sides are facing down right here to where this will be where your BB is contacting the Hopup patch, or the Hopup bucking, I'm sorry. You want to make sure it's a flat, untouched surface. That's basically why we removed the mound and the lock line. Because if the lock line was still there, we couldn't rotate the bucking onto a flat, nice, and pristine surface. Instead, we'd be confined to using the rough patch that we shaved away. So be sure to use a pristine surface and not one of the cutaway portions, as this will affect accuracy and possible range and air seal and all that good stuff. So get around to working on your dental floss. There really is no total tip to get it secured. I normally wrap it a couple times and tie a little overhand knot over top of it, and then I cut the remainder, and then I test and repeat that process until I get a desired result. This is one of the reasons why I like Teflon tape, is it's not as time consuming and it's not as tedious. Now, if you're having a hard time getting your Hopup bucking into your Hopup unit, you can use silicone around the Hopup bucking and not inside. Be sure not to put it inside, but put it outside so that it can more easily slide into the Hopup unit. Sometimes you have to do that because you just put so much dental floss, yet you need that much, it just still won't fit in very well. It's good to use some lubrication with silicone to get it to fit in. I know that sounds like a sexual innuendo, but we're going to go with, in the case of Airsoft here. Now let's get on to the last step. Finally, we're at the last step of fine-tuning our Hopup unit. All that hard work's about ready to pay off. Now you're going to take your super glue and you're going to want to put a small little dab onto the pink eraser and push down the Hopup arm to contact with it and to bond between the glue, the nub, and the Hopup arm. I like to glue them on because it seems to improve accuracy and a little bit of consistency in my experience. It's just something I like to do. Now, if your Hopup arm and your nub is super stiff in there, the super glue really isn't going to have an effect, because as soon as you go to adjust it, it's going to rip off and the whole bond's going to be broken anyway. So do make sure that your nub fits in to where it covers the whole entire the nub window, but at the same time it's not so stiff in there and so jammed in there that the super glue is going to have no effect. So go ahead and put that dab of super glue on there and you're done. Once you've done that final step, you're clear to put your Hopup unit back together, put it into your gun, and enjoy your newly improved range, accuracy, FPS consistency, and overall consistency and accuracy and range. Now, when this is done perfectly, or close to perfect as you can get, you can see amazing range increases. One of my AEGs I've done this exact modification to, and I'm getting out to 250 feet. On full auto, 410 FPS with .25s, and I'm getting around a little further, actually on 250, 260, but I can easily hit a man-sized target every single time, even on full auto, and this is a 35 RPS gun. This modification has no limit to RPS. The best thing about this modification is that it does actually improve the consistency even in high rate of fire guns. Like some high rate of fire guns get crazy horrible accuracy because the Hopup unit is just so loose and so poorly tuned that it just isn't capable of supplying a good, nice backspin to each BB 35 times a second. It's just not possible for that Hopup unit. If you fine tune a Hopup unit just fine, you'll see perfectly laser streams of BBs just going right out to 250, 260 feet. It's awesome. But like I said, this really isn't a difficult modification. It's just a little time consuming and you're going to have to sit down and take a little bit of time with it. But other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Especially with this video, you should be able to take care of it in no time flat. But that does it for this video, guys. I'll see you guys next time on another episode of Inside the Gearbox. See you guys later.